Going 17 minutes away from Curtis and Kubi, wrapping up the Bernie and Sid show here on 77 WABC. And we got a great guest in studio. I got to meet this guy a bunch of times when he was John McEnroe's sidekick on that defunct show on CNBC. But I've met him in the city. I've seen him do stand-up. And he's a friend of the show for many, many years. It's great to have him. John Fugelsang.
It's so nice
studio.
to be back, gentlemen.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Nice.
lowering your standards this much to let me in the building.
He's self-deprecating as well. By the way, the reason we played that song, The Dream On, is because you have a show premiering on PBS tomorrow night called Dream On.
It's a film, yeah.
It's a film.
It's a documentary movie that won Best Documentary at the New York Independent Film Festival, directed by a two-time Oscar nominee, and it's a movie about the American dream. We thought it was going to be like a 10-hour miniseries. PBS said we'll make it a 90-minute feature, but they're putting tons of extra footage on the website, and it's a movie unlike anything that's ever been made.
You've in this movie, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know all the specifics, but I think you've interviewed like 1,000 people. You've been to like 100 countries. I would ask you this. Why would you not come to us? I don't understand. We are the voices of politics and reason in New York.
We are America right here.
Right.
Well, when I first heard the idea of the movie, it seemed a bit esoteric, but it was retracing the journey Alexis de Tocqueville took. And 200 years ago, when he wrote Democracy in America, this French nobleman who comes over here falls in love with this concept of a society where people can be born poor, work hard all their life, play by the rules, and rise up the economic ladder. To a French nobleman, that was revolutionary. And his book led to the idea of the American dream. So what we did was, 200 years later, we did in 2 months in a car what it took him 9 months on horseback. We went to all the same cities. We did 200 interviews in 17 states and 55 cities, asking people of every different background in homeless shelters, rural obesity clinics in the Mississippi Delta, prisons. What was the American dream when you were growing up, and what is it today?
That's absolutely fascinating.
It is.
And I've been fascinated by de Tocqueville myself. I read this book about a year ago.
I read it back in college. I mean, it's a pretty heavy book.
It is a heavy book, but it's a good read. He was a Frenchman. He captured the essence of America back in the 1830s, and you have retraced his steps. Most people don't even know who the hell he is, but he was a brilliant guy.
In the 1994 midterms, both Bill Clinton and Newt Gingrich quoted de Tocqueville in speeches against each other. The liberals, the conservatives, and the libertarians have all claimed him as their own. He's that influential.
Alexis de Tocqueville. Anyway, the film tomorrow night, Dream On PBS, retracing the steps of the brilliant Alexis de Tocqueville, John Fugelsang's film on PBS Channel 13 in New York. Check it out, folks. So, and also, but you're a funny guy. You're a stand-up comic. You have a serious radio, satellite radio show.
Yes, I do. Every
Very
afternoon.
funny.
One of these days, I'm going to get you guys to come on
Yeah.
and throw it down with us. My sidekick is Frank Conniff from Mystery Science Theater 3000. You know, I've been blessed. I've had a very eclectic career. At VH1, I got to do George Harrison's final public performance and work with McCartney. I've done stand-up for the troops. I've hosted TV shows on current TV. I got Mitt Romney's advisor to call him an Etch-a-Sketch once on CNN.
You dropped more names than Pat O'Brien.
I hosted America's Funniest Home Videos. I got
did.
murdered on CSI. I've had a really eclectic career, but this was the most challenging project I ever
Well, you're a
had.
very talented guy and a very bright guy. But what's funny is you said something there which caught my ear as a.
That I got killed on CSI?
Besides that, as a very cynical person, you said the beauty is you come here poor. You play by the rules and you make money.
Or you're born here poor. You
You're
see that
born
way,
here
too.
poor. You play by the rules and you make money. And I think that people are so cynical these days that the idea of playing by the rules and making money sounds ridiculous.
Well, I agree with you. I mean, and I'm a recovering cynic. But the fact is, the middle class that we were promised when we were kids, the economic ladder, the American dream our parents and our grandparents grew up assuming would still be there, you guys know and your listeners know.
It's gone.
That doesn't exist.
Right.
You can still do it. But the American dream, the thought of going to Detroit and working on the line and being able to climb into middle class with the two-tier pay system, we were at the GM plant on the line in Detroit. It doesn't exist. The middle class today, for many, is the top of the bottom. And, you got people who have been working hard, playing by the rules, wondering, why is it impossible now? And if government policies got us into this mess, couldn't government policies get us out of this mess? We know what Eisenhower did worked. We know that we had a booming middle class under Republican President Eisenhower because he made certain policy choices that we don't do anymore.
I still say if you get up in the morning and you put your mind to it, you go to work, go to school, whatever it is, you will succeed in this country. I mean, if you walk around with a chip on your shoulder and saying, "Oh, man, the deck is stacked against me," it's going to be stacked.
Oh well, negativity is its own punishment, absolutely. But the whole. But you guys both know there's millions of Americans who've done that, who've worked hard, who played by the rules, gave their whole life to it, and then one day they're told, "Guess what? You don't get your pension, or we've sold your company to a foreign investor.
Your 401k is gone.
You can now apply to keep your job." We talked to Caucasians in their 60s who never thought they'd be on food stamps. I mean, at the same time, this film documents many people who are overcoming incredible odds to rise in the society despite the hurdles that are there now. It's not so much the income inequality. We hear that phrase a lot. Every society has communism would have income inequality.
Sure.
It's been 35 years of dramatically uneven income growth.
Well, here's the question, without getting too specific, because I'm sure Bernard will ask you about whether you like Trump or Clinton.
Let's talk about all of it.
The question is, the way this election is going, either one of them, is there any reason to believe, seriously, put your agenda aside, that it's going to get better?
Sometimes I feel like you have a choice of do you want your empire to collapse really fast or gradually?
Right.
Do you want,
but
do you want a
collapsing.
tourniquet or do you want a hemorrhage?
You're still going to bleed to death.
Well, greed kills all empires, doesn't it? Greed is the thing in capitalism and communism that guarantee both systems will never work.
Well, Gordon Gekko didn't say that, but that's fine.
Greed works, but it doesn't work for a society. It can work for individuals. It doesn't work for a society. I mean, the greed is what drives the American economy, sure.
Making a profit is not necessarily greed. You can you don't want to conflate the two. And I would say this: the definition of lunacy is doing the same thing over and over again. They say
exactly,
and so therefore. The maintaining the status quo of which you speak.
Well, we know the rich keep getting richer, the poor keep getting poorer, and for the middle class, the American dream has gone from prosperity to just scraping by.
That's true, and therefore that's why I say the status quo is going to perpetuate that. And
you're right.
And you have the traditional, both on the right and the left, Republicans and the Democrats embodied in Hillary Clinton, and in the Republicans you had the Jeb Bushes and the Ted Cruzes and those guys. The same thing. Now you have Bernie Sanders and a Donald Trump, which will shake things up. An out of the box way of thinking or approach. And perhaps will get us out of this rut.
It's amazing seeing the rise of Bernie and Trump this year because, they both are essentially having the same message of radical reform. Trump's doing it with personality. Bernie did it with policy. Trump wasn't pitching any policies that would actually help them. Building a wall is not going to help the middle class. It's going to get him votes. Bernie Sanders was talking about doing the stuff that Eisenhower did 2 generations ago.
Free education and
that's the stuff our capitalist allies have overseas that have helped their economies flourish, but we can't have them over here. And why? Why can't we have the same healthcare system Israel has? Why can't we have the same kind of free public education that our European allies have? It hasn't crashed any economies, and it's actually helped the economy. So this is a film that goes into every aspect, from mass incarceration to undocumented immigration to even obesity, and how obesity is an obstacle for millions. Student loan debt. There's so many things that are there that we could get together and work to overcome if we had the will. But this country has never been conservative versus liberal. It's always been aristocracy against democracy. We were talking before. The founding fathers, for all their good points, they thought only white, wealthy males like them should be allowed to vote.
Yeah.
And it's always been the struggle. Exploited labor. Before it was slaves, now it's undocumented workers outside Home Depot who are being exploited for below the minimum wage, or a 9-year-old girl in China making your iPhone. We still have it propping up our economy.
Is there any sex in this movie? Any sex at all? I'm just curious. Any anal or something?
He was in. He did visit prisons.
Oh, okay.
So I was in a couple of prisons. Yeah, we were in a couple of prisons. But no, this is not a sexy film. This is a film for your heart, not your loins.
Actually, you visited people in Sing Sing.
We were in Sing Sing, where they have a college education program. Now, for every dollar we spend on prison education, we spend $5 on reincarceration costs.
That makes no sense.
It makes complete sense. For every dollar you spend on educating convicts, that's $5 you save not having to lock them up again in the future. That's across the board. But in 1994, in their infinite wisdom, Congress cut funding for prison education programs, and it went from over 300 to about a dozen. Sing Sing has their own independently financed college education program, and they have a less than 1% return rate of their graduates coming back to jail.
So you think these people can, in fact, be fixed?
I think no one's beyond redemption. The whole point of Malcolm X's book is how he said, I'm proof that the prison system can reform somebody.
And not only that, age, maturity, that changes people. When you're young, you get arrested, you get sentenced to 25 years, and by the time you're 42 years old, you're still in prison, and you have another 10 years to go.
And we used to call prisons penitentiaries, right? Where you'd be penitent. Now they're cages where you lock people up. De Tocqueville came to America in 1831 to write a report on our prison system for the French government he despised, and it was visiting our prisons that made him fall in love with our people. To this day, you know, you could have a prison system that wasn't just a cage to lock people up in, but we talk to guys who first-time nonviolent drug offenders, but because of mandatory minimum sentencing laws, the judge's hands were tied. They're in jail for longer than
murderers.
And it's a racket. Any society that keeps building more for-profit prisons needs more crime. And you know who gets locked up for it.
Answer this question that John Fugelsang with Bernie and Sid right here. With the movie and all the things that you cover in this movie, which will detail all these issues, what is the biggest issue that is detailed in this movie facing this country?
Well, I mean, it's a lot of it. The whole movie is about all the issues
What's
that are
the biggest one, though?
Well,
in your opinion.
For me, it's money and politics. I mean, that's it. For me, it's like when you can make it so the aristocracy can't own this government, and we can have a government of the people, by the people, for the people, then we'll see solutions, because if everybody does well, everybody does well. If only the rich do well, we've had 35 years of trickle-down. I'm still waiting for my prize in the mailbox.
Listen, you know what? I can't believe a guy as intelligent as you actually hosted America's Funniest Home Videos.
I was young.
It's the best show ever.
I I needed the work. Well,
it's a great show.
You're a brilliant guy.
I was as tall as Daisy Fuentes. That's why
What's
they
his
cast
name?
me.
Also hosted that show. The very funny guy. Very
Bob
dirty.
Saget.
From Family. From
Bob Saget.
Bob Saget.
Yeah, great. I love
He's
Bob.
filthy, that guy, by the way. He is.
Oh, I know.
Filthy.
Yeah, but listen, John Fugelsang, this is a fascinating documentary. Premieres on PBS tomorrow night, 10 o'clock. Channel 13 here in the tri-state area, maybe Channel 21 out in Long Island. I am fascinated by it. I'm going to set my DVR.
I'm honored.
You should too, folks.
Did you know that he was also in The Lords of Flatbush with Henry Winkler and Sylvester Stallone?
I was a little kid when that movie came out.
Porn back in 77.
I was a little kid when that. I've done a lot of porn, but I'm usually wearing a leather mask. You wouldn't know it's me. You might recognize the back of my head. I'm not sure.
John Fugelsang, check out that flick tomorrow night, Dream On, documentary.
Go to PBS, you rabble. Check it out.
That's right. Retraces the step of Alexis de Tocqueville. Learn something, folks.
We had like everybody from Mike Huckabee to Paul Krugman interviewed for this movie. Wow. And then when it was cut down to feature length, my director decided to cut out all the big names and just put in the real stories of real people.
I like that.
Yeah.
Listen, unfortunately, we're way out of time. John Fugelsang, thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen. I love your show.
Brilliant
Thank you.
Guy. Thank you.
You guys make it a lot easier to be in a car in New York.
Nice of you. Bernie and Sid back after this.
77 WAB.